I think I'm going to do this one audio only. Simply because I think I'm going to have my head just in the book. Now, I've already talked about this scene with Torvald Nom and what I think about that, but it's very fitting that we get this next scene right after it with Harlow. And Harlow is the namesake of the one that was lost. One of the ones that was lost in Memories of Ice. The one, a part of the reason why Gruntle had gone into a tailspin. So, the consequence of a rape, who in this next scene, that rape will be, it will be written with a capital R. This is a very significant event for all of them. And I thought it was interesting that we have Uncle 1, Uncle 2, which is Gruntle, Father none. We don't talk about the father. Aunt 1, Aunt 2, Mother none, which is Stawny. And he knows about his, he knows who his mother is, as far as I can tell, and he knows, he thought that his father was even named Rape. It's that significant. It's very cold, too. So we go into this. Man, I just feel for this boy. We have so many instances in this book already of people just bearing a burden, and we're going to start with this boy here in this chapter, and it's not going to be the only one. And Gruntle is there also to help this child along. We have Stawny, who is called Aunt 2, but really she is Mother 1. He has Cousin 2, which is Mew. Cousin 3, Hinty. There is this other boy, Snell, which beats on him. Uncle Beddick, Aunt Mirla. And again, Gruntle just loves Harlow, and Harlow would feel safe around Gruntle. And I don't know if a lot of people feel safe around Gruntle, but certainly these two have a bit of a connection. So they sit down, Gruntle sighs. You're raising a fine family, Beddick. Fine family. I ain't raising nothing. Nothing, Beddick muttered, and Harlow knew that tone. Knew it all too well, and it might be days, maybe even a week, before Uncle 1 climbed back up from the dark, deep hole he was now in. I think a lot of people can relate to those feelings. I knew somebody, a good friend of mine, who, because of some unfortunate instances in some of his extended family, he had to take on the kids of, he had to take on kids that weren't his own. And of course, he's a great guy. He has his own kids, and this was a lot. This was a lot to do. And even though you want to extend that love, it is something that is heavy. Now, I don't know if this is specifically because of Harlow and a million other things, but everyone's down in this book. It seems like the notes that Steven Erikson put for each of these characters is all the characters that we know, but just make them like depressed and much and weighed down. And I like that he's done this, because this is a depressing continent. There are some depressing things happening. But I feel for Harlow, because And this Bedek, he's obviously depressed, and the mother, Mirla, does her best to help her out, but by doing that, it also puts a weight on her shoulders, and it takes away from her ability to be there for the other ones. And then it falls on Harlow to tend to the girls and do everything that was needed. And worst of all, it meant no one was holding back Snell. The beatings would get bad then. Mirla couldn't work much, but since the last baby, when she'd hurt something in her belly, she just, like everyone's got their own burdens, but they are also stepping up at times for somebody else's. This is going to echo one that we have in with Barathol and Solara. Remember, Solara is heartbroken that Cutter is gone. Crocus. And even through this, she is going to try to lift the burden of Barathol, who, man, his scene here is like, I had to put the book down, and like, it was heavy stuff. It just reminds you of that prologue again, that burden. Even though they weigh they're weighed down themselves, it's like they're trying to offer this hope for another. And I just love this as a continuation of the themes of Memories of Ice. So Harlow stays close to Gruntle. You couldn't choose your family after all, not your cousins, not anyone. They were there, and that was that. Besides, he could leave early tomorrow morning. So early, Snell wouldn't even be awake, and he'd make his way out of the city. Out along the lake shore where the world stretched away, where beyond the shanties there were hills with nothing but goats and shepherds. And beyond even them, there was nothing but empty land. That such a thing could exist whispered to Harlow of possibilities. I won't read all this, but whispers of hope, whispers of promise, again of promise, even when, I'll read this part, as bright as Gruntle's eyes, that promise, and it was that promise that Harlow held on to when Snell's fists were coming down. Isn't that amazing? Bedek and Gruntle talked about the old days. I love this part. When they'd both worked the same caravans, and it seemed to Harlow that the past, a world he'd never seen because it was before the rape, capital R, was a place of great deeds. A place thick with life where the sun was brighter, the sunsets were deeper, the stars blazed in the sky, the moon free of mists. Men stood taller, prouder, and nobody had to talk about the past back then because it was happening right now. Maybe that was how he would find the future. A new time in which to stand tall, a time he could stretch into. So he doesn't have a great past to look back to, which makes him look to a better future. But to the people who have lost the past that was great, a lot of them have, it's really stripped something off of them. And I feel for this Harlow and what is on his shoulders here. I don't really remember Harlow too much from Memories of Ice. I hadn't really connected with Harlow, Stani, and Gruntle too much up to this point, even though their situation was interesting. But yeah, I just don't really remember Harlow. But obviously, Gruntle was devastated when they lost Harlow. Okay, so we go to this next scene, and it is with Duiker, who is just as cynical and pessimistic and negative as he ever was, even though I really like Duiker. He is trying to capture what happened in Deadhouse Gates. He's trying to capture the chain of dogs and Coltane, and nothing is quite getting it. It seems like he's trying to formulate it, but it's tricky to get all the details, and maybe there's just something that isn't quite connecting. Almost like a photo doesn't quite capture. Maybe this is the issue he's having. And so if he doesn't write this down, how is it going to be captured and live on? I think of who was the one that said it in this, that they all know about Gothos, so that will live on. They all know about Animander Rake, and so he will live on, even though he's still technically living. But their thing will not live on unless Duiker does it. Unless he writes it down. Memory fails, says here. Memory fails. Forever doomed as we seek to fashion scenes framed, each act described, reasoned and reasonable, irrational and mad, but somewhere beneath there must be the thick, solid sludge of motivation, of significance, of meaning. There must be. The alternative is unacceptable. He's getting bitter. He seems to be extra bitter as, he sees this great day from the past, even though it was horrible what happened, but he sees all that was sacrificed. And then as he's looking around, observing how people are living, it's almost like that is just adding to his bitterness. And I can't wait to find out more about where his story goes. Because he's down again, like all these other ones. We have Gaz, who is this killer, who is very much a bully. He meets his god, which I wasn't totally sure what to make of it. It was very interesting. The god said that he had made several sacrifices to him already, and Gaz is like, well, that's not me. I'm interested in seeing where that goes. We have an agent from the Assassin Guild, Kroot of Taliant, and we have Ralik Nom becoming, he's back. I'm just going to skip this scene because I don't want this to go too long. We have Iskarl Pust going to his temple, and the Bokarala are kind of mimicking him to his annoyance, and he's going to this temple of shadow where he's kind of wanting to walk in like the hero. He's the ranking priest of shadow. He's the highest ranked. And he meets Sordico Qualm, who I believe is the high priestess, maybe? I can't remember. I don't know her rank. It's got to be a priestess. And so she doesn't even know who he is, doesn't even know about the monastery in Seven Cities necessarily. And that's an interesting little scene there. Then we have Mappo. And just the sight of him makes this guard almost pass out. Mappo is on his way to this temple of Bern. And I think there is a lot that we can gather from it. I haven't had a chance to maybe go into some of the symbolism that we could gather. But whenever we're dealing with sacrificing oneself, jumping into fire, being bathed in blood, there are things that we can gather. And he is on his way to, he wants to go to this cult of Burn, which is fading away. And he finds this priest, or priestess, I can't remember. Probably doesn't matter so much, but they recognize Mappo right away. And he wants to go do this ritual. He wants to walk the veins of the earth. Whatever that means especially, but that is going to be interesting. He chooses a most perilous path. We have been preparing the ritual since your ship docked. He went to the main chamber. They are arrayed in two rows acolytes waiting for him. Where there should be an altar, there is this crevasse in the floor where there is molten rock, molten lava, and Burn's gate awaits Mappo. So that gate is, it's like this portal to another dimension sort of thing. And I think, let me just look here. Yes, so the high priest says, what you see is not in this realm. Were it so, Darujistan would now be a ball of fire, bright as a newborn sun, the caverns of gas and all that. So I still don't totally understand how they sync up with each other, these other realms. Sometimes it feels like they're going to a totally different realm. Sometimes it feels like they're going to another realm that is kind of in parallel, like a spiritual realm that fits with the physical. And at least this seems to suggest that all this ground, this realm, this Burns realm, or whatever you would call it, exists where they are, but on a different plane of existence. I'm new to this stuff, so whatever. Okay, I know what you must be thinking. Oh, some gate. Ah, yes, accurate enough. You must be armored against such forces, they say. Are you ready, Mappo Runt? You wish to cast some sort of protective spell on me? No, he replied. The priest replied with an expression near to weeping. We wish to bathe you in blood. And then it just ends there. So, there's just so much. And when we actually get to the ritual, I think I'm going to have thought a little bit more about what that is going to entail. But wow, just wow. So here we have Berthol Mekar could see the pain in Solara's eyes. And then we have Char, who would hold himself close to her, almost as if he has this protective instinct. I love Char. He's just such a sweet, innocent, big man, I guess, to have around. Berthol had left his longing behind. And he speaks about his former life. You remember, he has all these regrets. I think of this other Tistandi, or several of them. The one who was that high mage, I guess, Endist. And he would look to his past life and think, what his life he has now is just a shell of what it could be. And Berthol's really struggling here. And he's haunted by the words, too late. Too late was something that could not be changed. Not with blood spilt at the foot of a god. It's time is just this savage. It's like a plague. Not with a knife poised to carve out his own heart. Too late simply grinned at him, lifeless, too poignant for sanity. Those 2 words had begun a chant. In the desert, nothing disguised time's cruel face. Death stalked him, they said. Listen to this. When longing comes to you, friend, step not into its snare, for longing is the fatal bait. Find yourself in its snare, and you will be dragged through all the time allotted you, Berthol Mekar, and nothing will grasp you. And nothing you grasp will remain, all torn from your fingers. All that you see will race past in a blur. All that you taste will be less than a droplet, nothing stripped away. Longing will drag you into stalker's bony arms, and you will have but a single last look back onto your life, a moment of clarity that can only be some unknown God's most bitter gift. And you will understand all at once all that you have wasted, all that you've let escape, and all that you might have had it. Oh, like that's just brutal to internalize. Now ride, friend, and wear the traps of your mind. That's powerful. Too late. Those 2 words haunted him. But he'd spat into the gleeful cry. That time, yes, he had. He had said no, and he had won. Such victories were without measure, enough to hold a man up for a while longer, enough to give him the courage to meet a woman's eye, to meet unflinching what he saw there. And then we have Solara trying to lift him up. We really are the lost ones, aren't we? Solara said. We need to find ourselves a purpose in life. If you could have anything at all, Berthol, what would it be? He thinks a second chance. I mean, this is a man filled with regret. Always looking back, thinking, he doesn't have any more time. He has lost his time. The best days are behind him. He cannot regain that. And in a way it's true, but he has no ability to look forward, or he has a struggle looking forward, where Harlow looks to the open fields. The Maiba had a brutal time with not being able to look forward with her time. A second chance. There's no point in that question, Solara. I'll settle with a smithy. That's not me crying. I just got a dry mouth. Just so you know. Still a robot. Okay. I'll settle for a smithy and a good day's work. Each and every day. I'll settle for an honest life. Then that's where we'll start, she says. Isn't that a great answer? Now we get this reunion, not really a reunion, but we get that group meeting up at a bar with the bridge burners, and they kind of recognize this. I'm not going to really go into what happens, but they are passing each other drinks, and they're getting to know each other in a weird sort of way. So let's skip some. It's a great scene, but I'm going to skip it so this doesn't get too long. We get to Crone, the great raven, and she sees Baruch, the high alchemist, and he's summoning someone, or at least getting a glimpse of this demon who is from the realm of the Fallen One, his birthplace. And we wonder, is he seeking the crippled god? Is that the Fallen One, or is it someone else? I figured it was just the crippled god, but it must be someone else. I don't quite. I'll think about this more, but he's getting this look, meditating, you say, seeking its god, and I will send it home soon, he says. This is not simple curiosity. This Crone saying that, like, you're up to something. He says, I had a guest not so long ago. Did he sit in a chair? And we find it was Shadowthrone. And there's a good point raised here. The gods and goddesses. Oh, where are the rest of them? Meaning, where are the rest of the gods? The gods and goddesses, the ones cringing every time the crippled god clears his throat. So eager for this war, as long as someone else does the fighting. They need to pick up their end of the couch, these gods, wherever they are. And I still don't know where they are. I figure that maybe some of them are in Hood's realm, based on talk going in there, and he still has his eye, and it seems like even though they're kind of like in the flesh, so maybe that's a place where they, I figure some of them would be at least there, but they would be hiding around and stuff, and I assume that eventually they're going to have to step out of wherever they are and do some work here, and I am all here for that. We have Chillbice lifting his head and saying, she comes. Yes. And it is, he says, fly to Darudan. And who's also maybe this, there's 3 of them, which I don't understand all of what's going on. But at the bottom of this, he says, actually, let me just go through this. He's waiting for maybe Vorkin also to have this talk with her. This person who killed the others, who was targeting them. And he's wondering if he should ask Animander Rake for help during all this. Remember, this was from before. Animander Rake is offering it. No one wants to help, or no one wants to ask. And if he chose to escape, or to accept that offer, should he tell Darudan and Vorkin? How could he not? Oh, Beric, be open. Be honest with them. And that just screams of that epigraph that says that truth is like the thing that clears everything up. It's like the thing that purifies. Right at the start of this book. Maybe chapter 1 or whatever it was. Book 1. Ask them. Simple as that. There were but 3 of them left now. Not enough to stop the tyrant's return. Even with Rake's help, not enough. Which means one of us will choose to betray the others. One of us will betray the others. Maybe Darudan. Maybe this one here. Gods, maybe me. And we're almost at the end here. We have Rallick sneaks up on Cutter, and they have this scrap, and Cutter really does a good job holding his own. And he flings his knives over. He has these Malazan knives, and one of them sticks Rallick in the shoulder, and he can't find it later. He's like, hey, it's right here. And they make their way over to... They talk about... I don't want to get into all the nitty-gritty, but it's really cool. They talk about... Rallick says he doesn't really recognize Cutter's way of doing things. Are you in this guild? Are you part of things with Darujistan? Cutter says, no, I just got back. And they make their way to the Phoenix Inn, where a lot of their old pals, including Kruppa, is there. But first we have this funny interaction with Kruppa and these 2 collectors who say that they let Torvald go to get one more day, and he basically warns them that that was a stupid thing to do, and if Gareb hears that, then they are in, they're going to have some serious issues. And I just love the way that Kruppa deals with people, even though I really, really love the way Kruppa ends these chapters. It's like a feature, it's a highlight of this book. Having Kruppa telling this story in his weird sort of way. So they get back there. Salty's there. Mies is there. Scorch and Lef. Kruppa's there. And I love what Kruppa says here. Crocus finds his way. I don't know if he's going, he's going by Cutter still. He goes and sits down next to Cutter. Next to Kruppa. And just before that, we get a mention that life stumbles on, although the exception is none other than Kruppa himself, for whom life dances. And remember, in the prologue, he says, have you ever seen Kruppa dance? So he dances through life. Tell Kruppa, dear Cutter, do you believe we are all equal? Equal? Well, a laudable notion, we can both agree, yes. Yet, and he puts up his finger, is it not true that from one year to the next, we each ourselves are capable of changes so fundamental that our present selves can in no reasonable way be considered equal to our past selves? If the rule does not apply even within our own individual lives, how can we dare hope to believe that it pertains collectively? Kruppa, what is all this? Years past, Cutter, who was once named Crocus, good point there too to throw that in, we would not have a discussion such as this, yes? Kruppa sees, and sees very well. He sees sorrow and wisdom both, pain and still open wounds, love found and love lost, a certain desperation that still spins like a coin. Which way will it fall? Questions as yet unanswered, a future as yet undecided. A spinning coin. Drink, dear friend, drink deep the unknown. Drink deep the unknown and the unknowable future. So I love this. I love how this is going with the theme, even though there is this burden of the past and people are standing on top of the many layers that have built the foundation of what has brought them to that moment. They have a hard time crumbling that foundation, especially if it is one that they look down and it hurts them and it's depressing, and feeling like they don't have another foundation that they can build in a very short time in some cases. I know that a lot of people with regrets don't realize that within a short amount of time, sometimes there are things that they can do to get themselves out of that slump. Now, I am not a therapist, but I've certainly experienced some of that sort of thing. We have a couple more scenes here. We have Torvald going home to his wife, and I love Torvald might be the one, except for that scene where he's like caught up in that weird thing. So it's weird for me to say this, but I connect so much with Torvald and his vibe with his spouse here, where he's scratching at the door and then he's knocking at it. She's saying, wrong house. And he thumps his fist. And then the man stepping onto the threshold was wearing a stupid grin. My spouse always tells me I have my stupid grin, so that made me laugh. Torvald Nom, you're late. Is to Sarah. Sorry, love. I got waylaid. Slavers, ocean voyages, Toblakai, Dinrabi, torture and crucifixion, a sinking ship. I had no idea going out for a loaf of bread could be so dangerous. Well, the whole mess started with me hearing about a debt. And then he goes through all that, and he had to leave. And when he left, Gareb started badgering her. It didn't just leave with him. His debt became hers. And she took on the burden once he left. Obviously, he had tons of stuff going on while he was doing this. But she took on that burden and had to chase him off, and is saying, this wasn't fun having to do this. Not at all. He says, I'm home now. Wealthy too. No more debt. I'm clearing it in the morning. So you will rob tonight? Or did you rob tonight? Who did you rob tonight? Why, Garib, of course, cleaned him out, in fact. Oh, husband, I know I'm a genius. Yes, Torvald, I grasp the situation well enough. You know where the secret hole is? Drop the bag in there, if you please, while I get started on the rest. Still love me? He asked. Always, you damn fool. Now hurry. Then we get the very, very last chapter end, and I just want to read a little bit of it. This is Kruppa. Glory's unending this night in Darujistan, and now the dawn stirs awake, a light to sweep aside the blue glow on the unsleeping city. See the revelers stumbling towards their beds, or the beds of newfound friends, or even a stranger's bed. What matter the providence of love? I love that Kruppa's telling this story because obviously he would have this very specific way of telling it. Steven Erikson already has an amazing voice here, but channeling Kruppa is just, I feel like it's just really, he's finding his own even more here. What matter the burdens of life? There's that word again. When the sun blazes into the sky and the gulls stir from their posts in the bay, when crabs scuttle for deep and dark waters. Not every path is well trod, dearest friends. Not every path is set out with even paved stones and unambiguous signs. This is an amazing story he's telling, and it's already just hitting me. It's hitting me so hard through his voice here. He's not being like crappa da ba da. Like he's telling a very engaging, intelligent, very thoughtful, and very hopeful story. He is not telling a pessimistic story, even though this is a tragic story. I feel like he is offering some light for the reader, even though this is a tragic tale. He seems to be saying, "Rest eyes in the manner of a thief who is a thief no longer." Skipping down, elsewhere a child long ago abandoned by his mother frets in his sleep, pursued by a nightmare face with the absurd name of Snell attached to it. The two guards run, hearts pounding, from the gate to the estate, as alarms ring loud and urgent, for an evil man has lost all his ill-won wealth. A fingerless man stumbles home, God-blessed and blood oozing from his battered knuckles, while his wife sleeps without dreams. Her expression so peaceful, it sounds like he's taking this. He's a terrible guy, but in the moment it would sound like he's taking a burden so his wife can sleep peaceful, even though look what he's doing. Even the most unsentimental sculptor could do naught but weep. Wow. And in a street unworthy of any particular notice stands an ox, thinking about breakfast. What else is there, after all, when love and friendship and power and regret and loss and reunion fierce enough to tear away all that might have been bittersweet? After all is gone and done with. What else is there but the need of the stomach? Eat, dine on pleasures and taste sweet life. Inconsequential? Bah! As Kruppa ever says, it is a wise ox that gets the yoke. And I would just add that I love that. I love that last line. As Kruppa ever says, it is a wise ox that gets the yoke. For it takes intelligence and wisdom, I would say, for somebody to willingly accept or embrace their responsibilities or burdens, just like a wise ox might willingly accept the yoke that binds it to the plow. Isn't that just... I love the prologue of this, and I love that it keeps pointing at it. And I love that we are finding people weighed with burden. And I love that we find people trying to carry other people's burden. Not always. And of course we have the rest of the plot. That's amazing. But I love the start of this book. And it's not an easy start. It is slow. And it is heavy. And it's not so exciting. But man, I love the tone and what it is building. I love the foundation that it's setting for us. And I just can't wait. I can't wait for the second half. I can't wait for the next chapter. Then I'll be done Subbook 1. I will be going immediately into Subbook 2. Who knows? Maybe I'll even get halfway by the end of the week. But I don't want to rush it. But isn't this just an incredible book so far? And I can't wait to get to the next epigraph for chapter 6. I've just loved them. So I will talk to you guys all very, very soon.